Okay, welcome everyone. As we are dedicated tonight by A.B. Spry, that he should have nachas from all his wonderful children for many, many years. And we are dedicated by Michal Avram Chavin that we should all finish Shas with Gesund. Let's have in mind for my mother, Esther Fadel Baschana, that she should be free of pain. Berish, what's your mother's name? Miriam Sarabas Thega was in the hospital. Berish's mother, she should have a refuah shalema. B'seich shar chayil Yisrael. We also want to learn for Rabbi Kranz, who has a procedure tomorrow, and that it should go effective and easy without any side effects, and it should be lead to a refuah shalema. B'seich shar chayil Yisrael. Yaakov Avadia ben Freda Rivka should have a refuah shalema b'seich shar chayil Yisrael. We are holding on the bottom of Lamed Ches Amud Beis, where we talked about now nechasim netushim and nechasim retushim. What are nechasim netushim and nechasim retushim? So we are holding 7 lines from the bottom as we welcome in Saba, Yitzi Muller, Dr. Guy, Eddie Chazan is back in a helicopter, Baruch Ian, Aaron Swade, Mel Zachter, Mark Frankel, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Black, Yeshua Shmuel Eisenberg, Moshe Lehman, Shimon Deer, Ilya Shutman, Shelley Zeitlin, Rabbi Kranz, Larry Tuchinski, David Helfgott on Kol Hashem, and we welcome here in Shul Avram Rezepkowitz, Berish Gesseman, Reb Kramer, Michal Avram, Ruvain Shanet, probably Gedalia will be here shortly. And so the Mishnah says, Hayored lenichsei netushim. If a relative, a next in kin, goes into nechasim that were abandoned, we take him out of there. If his father or brother or someone else that would transmit to him Yerusha, he's in line for the Yerusha. If they went overseas, but there was no rumor that they died, so the Tanakama holds that we don't want him, the heir apparent, to go into the property because he might neglect the property. While Reb Shimon Gamliel says, Shamati, Shanetushim, that if it's abandoned with the person overseas, it's kishvuyin, it's like if he was captured, and we allow him to go in because we say he's going to take good care of the property, because if the person comes back, he will be paid like an oris, he will be paid like a sharecropper. Hayored nichsei retushim, but if the property was abandoned but the owner is in town, everybody agrees that since he's in town, he could have left instruction for someone to take care of it, and he didn't. So we don't let the next of kin go into the property. What does it mean, nichsei retushim? If the one who would transmit inheritance to him is somewhere in town, we just don't know where he is, we don't allow the next in kin to go into the property and maintain it. So the Gemara says, Maishna hanach dekorlu netushim. Now netushim implies that they were abandoned against the person's will. Something happened that he got stuck overseas. He took ill overseas. He got stuck in customs. Why is the other case where he's somewhere in town called Ritushim? So the Gemara explains as we start the top of Lametes Amud Aleph, Nitushim, the Bal Karcha, where he got detained inadvertently overseas, that's something that happens against his will. So that's similar to what it says about Shvius. The Chsiv HaShvius, the 7th year, the Shemitah, Tishmeteno Unetashta, will release the debts. And this means against his will, because it's a commandment of Hashem that all debts are released by the Shemitah. Afkata de Malka, that's a divine release, which is against his will. Ritushim de Medatum, Ritushim means willingly. Dichsiv, Imal Bonim Rutosha, if they abandon the mother and children because they're afraid of the enemy, and they abandon them, but they abandon them willingly. They made the decision to abandon them. Tana, we learn to the Brisa, V'kulam shamim lahem ka'aris. And all of these people that go into the property are evaluated like a sharecropper. Ahai. Ilema ashvuyin, if it's going, that if you go into the property of a captive, you're evaluated like a sharecropper. But, well, of course, we said more than that, that if before the owner gets back, he eats the whole crop, he profits from that. Hashtav zoras v'nisker have, if we say that he eats up the crop before the owner comes back, he's energetic and he profits, that which he improves the land, is there any question that he's going to get? Ella aritushim, it's going on where it was abandoned against his will. The Rabbanan say that we take it away and we don't allow him to go in. Ella Ritushim, it's talking about where he was in town. We say that we don't allow him to stay there. We don't allow the heir apparent to stay there. Ella Anatushim, it's talking about where he was overseas, the owner, and it was abandoned against his will. Now, Laman, Rabbanon, if it's going according to Rabbanon, we say to Rabbanon hold that we don't let the next of kin in. We're afraid that he might damage the property. And Irab Shimon Gamliel, if it's like Rab Shimon Gamliel, Shemati Shanitushim Kishvuyin, and we said the Shvuyin is, we said that they could take even more. He could finish off. If he harvests it early, he's a zaras v'nisker. Says, well, kishvuyin v'lo shvuyin. It's like a captive, but not mamish like a captive. Kishvuyin, dein moitzian oisei miyadai. We don't say that he can't go into the field. V'lo shvuyin, but he's not mamish like a shavi. The ilu hasam, in the case of a captive, zaras v'nisker, he could harvest the whole crops before the owner comes back. And here we only evaluate him like a sharecropper. Says the Gemara, now the Gemara makes an application, which is a little bit of a difficult application, as we welcome in Abe Arbach joining us, Nachman Chapler is joining us. Jay Siegel has joined us. Says the Gemara, and by the way, Rabbi Isai, I did the Mishnah Yomis already. It's a very strange Mishnah Yomis. The first Mishnah of tonight's Mishnah Yomis is one of the strangest Mishnayos in all of Shas, and you could catch that on TorahAnytime.com or on YouTube. After the share tonight, we will have a chok, Yetz Hashem. Says the Gemara, why is it any different from that which we learned in the Mishnah? If he makes expenses on the nichsei mulug of his wife, hoitzi harba, whether he spent a lot, v'ochel kima, and ate very little peiris, or kima, or he spent a little v'ochel harba, masha hoitzi, or masha ochel. What he spent, and what he ate, and we don't give him any credit for the expenses he made in the land. We don't view him like a sharecropper. Says the Gemara, you're right. Haloi damya, if you want to compare it to anything, lahaditnan hamoitzi hoitzois al nichse isha ketana, if he makes improvements on the property of his minor wife, that's kemoitzi al nichse achar dami. That's like making property, like making improvements on somebody else's property, which means alma kevan deloi samcha date, since he's not assured that he's going to keep the field, because since she's a ketana, she could walk away from the marriage with a miyun, with the refusal. So there we need to give him the incentive, and therefore we say, Tekinulei Rabbanan, we gave him an incentive that he should be viewed as a sharecropper, he should get expenses, in order that he shouldn't neglect the property. Hachanami Tekinulei Rabbanan, here also the Rabbanan made this enactment that he should be viewed as a sharecropper, that he shouldn't ruin the field that he went in to take care of. The kulon shaman lehen ka'aris. Now the Mishnah says we evaluate them all like a sharecropper. The question is, the v'kulon, what does that come to include? V'kulon li'yisuyei mai, says the Gemara, li'yisuyei, we're going to see it includes somebody that's a bareach, somebody that's a fugitive. As the Gemara will say, let's see it inside. Li'yisuyei hadam Rav Nachman amashvul, shavui shenishbeh, a captive that's taken into captivity, marid and karv l'nechasef. We put a next of kin into the property. Yotzel adas, if he went away willingly, a marid and karv l'nechasef. Rav Nachman didei, Rav Nachman himself says, bayreach, if he had to fled, harihu kishavi, he's like a captive. So the Gemara says, bayreach machmas mai, he fled because of what? Ilay machmas karga, if he fled to avoid the skull tax, then hainu ladas, this is somebody that leaves willingly, which we said that we don't allow somebody to go into the field. Ella bayreach machmas mardin, there's an accusation of murder against him, and therefore he fled. So that is also like a shavui that you go into the property, and when it says that we evaluate everyone ka'aris, it comes to include even a barech, even a fugitive from the law. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishmol, shavi shenishba, a shavi that was taken into captivity, v'niach kama liktar, and he left stalks, grain, ready to be harvested. Anovim liftar, grapes to be vintage, tmarim ligdar, dates to be cut down, zaysim limtzach, olives to be pruned. So here, for this job, they don't want the next of kin to take away a lot of it. So Bezdin Yordan l'nechasav, Bezdin goes down, umamidan apitropos. As the Gemara will say, they won't have a hard time getting an executor to just do this job. V'kaitzer u'baitzer v'gaider u'maisik, and he harvests and he vintages and he cuts the dates and he prunes the olives. V'acha kach maridin karv l'nechasav, and then afterwards we put the next of kin into the property to watch it afterwards. V'lukim apitropos la'ilam, why don't we appoint a executor always? Apitropos is not going to do this. He'll do it for a katana, for a yosem, because he considers it a big mitzvah. But apitropos l'diknane, but for adults, loy mekminan, you won't find an apitropos to take that job. Amar Rav Huna, the rule is as follows. Ein moridin katan l'nichsei shavi. We don't appoint a minor to watch over the estate of a captive relative. Why? Because we don't trust the minor. A minor could damage it. V'loy karav l'nichsei katan. We don't appoint a relative to the property of a minor, because a minor is defenseless and is clueless, and the karav might claim that he got the property for himself. V'loy karav machmas karav l'nichsei katan. Even a relative of a relative we don't appoint over the nechsei katan, because the relative of the relative might say, well, I acquired it from my relative who got it from the katan. We're very mindful that the katan is defenseless. Ema reading katan l'nechsei shavui. Why? He's not a responsible person, and he might damage the property. V'loy karav machmas karav l'nechsei katan. The reason is we're talking about ba'achei me'ima. We're talking about a maternal brother. Now, a karav machmas karav is talking about you see, even the karv machmas karv means that this katan has a paternal brother who would inherit him. Now, the paternal brother has a brother from the same mother from a different father. So that maternal brother is not in line to inherit it. So you might say, well, it's safe to put him into the property. It's not safe, because he might claim that he was watching it for his paternal brother. And he'll say that it's the paternal brothers and not the katan. Because since the child is defenseless, he doesn't know to protest, the paternal brother might come to possess it. We could deduce from Rav Huna that ein marzikin b'nichsei katan, as we're going to learn in Masechtas Bava Basra, if Gedalia has a piece of property and I'm in it for 3 years, I could claim that I bought it. When he says, show me the shtar, I'll tell him I didn't keep the paper for more than 3 years. Since you didn't protest for 3 years, that's proof that it's mine. That's called the cheskas gimel shanim, presumptive status of 3 years. You cannot have that if you're occupying it with a child, because the child doesn't know to protest. So Amar Rav Shmami Namid Rav Huna, that ein marzikim b'nichsei katan, you cannot acquire the property of a katan even though you possess it for 3 years, because he doesn't know to protest. Va'afilu higdal, even if you're, let's say, holding it 3 years, you held it for 6 years, and 3 of those years he was already bar mitzvah. But since he doesn't know to protest, because he doesn't know what went on while he was a ketana, so there's no chazaka. V'lo yamron ela ba'achei da'aba, aval ba'achei de'ima, but when do we say this? The Gemara wants to say now that who don't we appoint into the field to take care of the field? That's only achei da'aba, a paternal brother who is in line to inherit. Aval ba'achei de'ima, but a maternal brother who's not in line to inherit, because inheritance is only in the mishpachoisam lebeis avoisam from the father's side. Lesamba. Ba'achei da'aba nami lo yamron elabar asa. That's only if it's land. Aval b'bate, but if it's apartments, everybody knows who's the owners of apartments. Lesamba. There's no problem with putting in a paternal brother, because the child's rights will be protected because everybody knows what's going on, the ownership of apartments. Obarasa nami lo yamran eladolo yavid itita, where there wasn't a document that clearly specified what's called, as Rashi says, a shtar chaluka, a document of division that clearly specified what belongs to the child and what doesn't belong to the child. But if there's but if there is a shtar itita, then you could set up the ear in the field because the child's right is protected with the shtar itita. However, the Gemara says that this is not so. Beloved itita kala isla. It's known, the ownership and the child's rights are protected. However, the Gemara says v'loihi. This is all not so. Loishna aki de'aba makes no difference if it's a paternal brother. Loishna aki de'ima makes no difference if it's a maternal brother, because the maternal brother might claim that he got it from a paternal brother. And loishna arasa makes no difference if it's land. Loishna bate, because it might not be known. Might not be known that the child owns part of the apartments. Even if they made a document of division, a shtar chaluka, maybe it'll get lost. And therefore, we don't put an ear into the property. So now, the Gemara gives us an interesting case. Ahi Sapsa, there was an older woman, we'll call her Miriam. Miriam had 3 daughters, Rachel, Leah, and Bilhah. 3 daughters. Ha'i Sapta Dahavla Tlas Bansa. She had 3 daughters, Rachel, Leah, and Bilhah. Ishtavoy Ihi V'chada Rata. The mother Miriam and her daughter Leah were taken into captivity. Shtava Eve, Miriam and Leah were taken into captivity. Idach Tarte Bansa, of the other two daughters, Shchiva Chadaminayu, Rachel died, and she left a little son Yosef. Shchiva Chadaminayu, V'shavka Yanuka. She left a child Yosef. Now here's the situation. Miriam, the mother, and one of the daughters, Leah, is in captivity. The other 2 daughters, Rachel and Bilhah, Rachel died and had a child Yosef. And now there's Yosef and Bilhah in freedom. None of them are married. Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, Miriam has property. What do we do with the property? Heichi navid, what should we do with the property? Lukminu lenichse biyada da'aksa, should we allow Bilhah, the remaining sister, to take care of the property? Dilma shchiva safta, maybe the Miriam, the mother, died. They marid in karav l'nichse cotton, and a karav cannot go into the property of a child. Now, the child, Yosef, owns, if Miriam died, he owns 1/3 of the property, because he inherits 1/3 of the property, because he inherits his deceased mother's Rachel's share. And therefore, since he's a minor, you can't put Bilhah into the property, because Eimarin and Karav, you can't put a relative into the property of the minor, L'nechse cotton. Nukminu l'nichsei biyada dinuka, to let Yosef, who's 11 years old, take care of the property. That you surely can do. Dilma lo yishchiva safta. Maybe Miriam is not dead. Veimarin katan l'nichsei shava. You can't put a minor into the property of a captive. Amar Abaye, so Abaye says, here's what we do. Hilkach, palga yavinu la achsa. Half of the property we let Bila maintain. The idach palga, and the other half of the property, we appoint a apotropos to watch it on behalf of Yosef. The idach palga mukminu le apotropa yanuka. Now, why do we do this? Because if Miriam and Leah both died, so then half of it is owned, inherited by Bila, and half of it is inherited by Yosef. So we let Bila maintain half, and we let Yosef, as a minor, we have an apotropos maintain it for Yosef. Rava says, look, it's always better to have an executor. And once we have to get an executor, migud the mekmin apotropa palga, since we set up an executor for half, mekmin apotropa palga, we have the executor take care of the whole estate of Miriam's. Now, l'saif shamu deshchiva safta. At the end, we hear that Miriam died. We don't know the fate of Leah. But at the end, we heard Miriam died. So for sure, even if Leah is alive, Bila inherits a third, and Yosef inherits a third. So Amar Abaya, Tilsa a third, Yavinu la'achsa. A third we give to Bila. V'tilsa Yavinu le'yanuk. And a third we give to the child, to Yosef. Now what about the remaining third that might belong to Leah? What about the remaining third? The idach tilsa, Yavinan danka la'achsa, 1/2 of that, which is a sixth, because the remaining 1/3 is 2/6. So 1/6 of that we give to Bila to take care of. The idach danka, and the other 6 we give to Yosef, who has an executor take care of it. The idach danka mukminu le'apotropa le'yanuka. And here again, Rava says, since we have an executor take care of one of the 6, we have an executor take care of the other 6. Another story. Mori bar Isaac. Now here, Mori was the son of Isaac. His father Isaac went overseas, married a woman, and had another child. Let's think of a name to call the other child. You're going to use my imagination. Marshall. Right? I just picked it out of a hat. Right? So what happened was, what happened is, Mamish, but you should see Baruch's face. He was so surprised. He's so surprised. So again, Murray had his father Isaac went overseas, got married, and had a child, Marshall. And in the meantime, Murray came back, and his father died, and he possessed his father's field. After a long time, his brother Marshall shows up from Chuzai and wants half of the property. Amalei Ploigli, give me half of the property. This guy shows up and all of a sudden wants 50% of his property. Amalei lo yadanalach. So Murray says, I don't recognize you. I don't know who you are. I don't know the truth. I don't know if you're really my brother. So also the comedy Rav Chisda, they came before Rav Chisda. Amalei, so Rav Chisda told this marshal fellow, Shaper Kamalach, he says, right, he doesn't know you. The last time he saw you, you were a little kid without a beard. Now you have a beard. He doesn't recognize you. It's like it says the brothers didn't recognize Yosef. And Yosef as Echav, his Yosef recognized his brothers, but they didn't recognize him because when he was a kid, he didn't have a beard, and now he has a beard. So therefore, Rav Chisda told Marshall, go bring witnesses that you're his brother, and then you could get half. Amalei, so Marshall said, Isli Sadi, I do have witnesses, but Vidachli Minei, they're afraid of Murray. They're afraid. The Gavra Alimu, he's a rough guy. You know, they didn't have witness protection program in those days, you know? So he's afraid. He's afraid of the witnesses are afraid of the repercussions. So Rav Chisda found out that was true. So now he turned the tables on Murray. Amalela Didei, he told Murray, Zil ant aisi sada l'lavachachu. You bring rayas that Murray is not your brother. Amalei dinahachi, I have to bring proof. He wants to take away from me half the estate, doesn't he have to bring the proof? Amalei, so he tells him, Hachi dainina lach ulekol alimei dekabra. This is the way we deal with you and all mafioso like you. If witnesses are afraid to testify, they're afraid that about the cement shoes, then we shift the burden on you. So, listen to Murray. Murray thought quick on his feet. He says, well, if you're afraid of my mafia tactics, why aren't you afraid that I'm going to bring false witnesses? Amalei saif asu sadeh v'loy misadeh. I'll bring witnesses and they won't testify the truth. They'll testify like me. Amalei tarte loy avdeh. I'm not worried about that. Because witnesses might not come because they're afraid. But they're not going to come into the court and say falsehoods. L'saif, at the end, at the end, witnesses came and Taka said that Marshall was his brother. So he gave him half the estate. But Marshall, you know, he was nishkan for shlafana. You know, Marshall was nishkan for shlafana. He didn't want just half of the estate. He also wanted half of the improvements that Murray made on the estate. Says the Gemara, Amalei lifleg li nami mipardise yubustane d'shasel. I want half of the orchards and the gardens that my brother Murray planted. So what we're going to do with this claim, we're going to save for tomorrow. I know it's a cliffhanger, and I know that somebody like Baruch is going to have a very hard time sleeping. Take a pill. And we're going to learn now, Rabbi say, a chak